Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Curiosity Compendium. You know, living in New York, you get used to the sounds of the city. The hum of traffic, the distant sirens, the chatter of a million lives. But can you imagine, for a second, a different sound? A deep, groaning rumble, like a beast waking up. And then a roar, not of metal or machines, but of something thick and dark and impossibly heavy. A sound followed not by screams, but by a terrible, suffocating silence. That is the sound that opened one of the strangest and most tragic chapters in American history. This is the story of a sunny day, a faulty tank, and how a city was nearly drowned in molasses. Yes, molasses. That sticky, sweet syrup we might drizzle on pancakes or use in gingerbread. It seems about as dangerous as a pillow fight. But on January 15th, 1919, in the north end of Boston, molasses proved to be a terrifying force of nature. This wasn't just a spill. This was the Great Boston Molasses Flood. And to understand how it happened, we need to talk about pressure, greed, and the very nature of the substance itself. Our story centers on a massive storage tank owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company. It stood 50 feet tall and 90 feet wide, and it held over 2.3 million gallons of molasses. That's a weight of nearly 30 million pounds. Now, this molasses wasn't meant for your kitchen. This was industrial grade, destined to be fermented into ethanol, which was a key component in manufacturing munitions for World War I, which had just ended. The company was in a rush, you see. Prohibition was on the horizon, and the demand for industrial alcohol was about to skyrocket. Speed and profit were the priorities. So when this colossal tank was built in 1915, it was done hastily. It was poorly designed, with walls too thin, and it was tested in the worst way possible, by simply filling it with water once, and then immediately filling it with molasses. No proper inspections. Locals reported that the tank groaned and leaked from day one. Kids would bring pails to collect the sweet drips. The company just painted it brown to hide the stains. They ignored the warnings. And then came that unusually warm winter day. The temperature had risen sharply from the deep freeze of the previous days. At about 12:30 p.m., as workers took their lunches and the streets were bustling, the tank gave way. Witnesses described that low, grinding rumble I mentioned as the rivets shot from the steel like machine gun fire. Then, the entire structure split open. A wall of molasses, initially over 25 feet high, exploded into the streets. It moved at an estimated 35 miles per hour. It was not a slow, oozing wave. It was a tsunami of viscous fluid, with enough force to bend the supports of an elevated railway, tear buildings from their foundations, and smash a firehouse, crushing the truck inside. Horses, carts, and people were swept away in an instant. The initial wave was devastating, but what came next was just as horrific. As the wave lost its initial momentum, it settled into a thick, drowning pool, chest deep in places. The molasses, now agitated and full of air bubbles, behaved almost like quicksand. The more you struggled, the more it held you. Survivors described being stuck as if by cement. Rescue workers, police, and sailors from a nearby ship rushed in, only to find themselves fighting against the substance. It coated everything, clogging nostrils and mouths. The sweet, cloying smell that had once filled the neighborhood now became the smell of death. The rescue effort lasted for days, with workers using torches to cut through the hardened goo to search for bodies. In the end, 21 people were killed, and over 150 were injured. The cleanup took weeks, with salt water from the harbor being pumped through the streets to dilute the mess. They say that on hot summer days for years afterward, the streets of the North End would still smell faintly of molasses. Now, this is where the story shifts from tragedy to landmark. What followed was one of the first major class action lawsuits in Massachusetts history. Over 100 victims and their families sued the United States Industrial Alcohol Company. The company, of course, tried to blame anyone else. They suggested anarchists had blown up the tank, a popular theory in the post-war Red Scare. But the evidence on the ground and in the courtroom told a different story. The investigation was a marvel of early forensic engineering. A scientist named Arthur D. Little conducted experiments on the failed steel, showing how the cold snap followed by the warm day created stress, and how the poor quality steel, under immense pressure, became brittle and failed. He even had samples of the steel tested, showing the jury how it shattered. The trial lasted 6 years, but the verdict was clear. The company was found negligent. They had to pay the equivalent of tens of millions in today's dollars. This case set a precedent. It led to stricter regulations and oversight for industrial construction across the country. The flood, born from negligence, ironically became a wave that pushed forward the standards of public safety. I think about this story often as an engineer and an entrepreneur. It's a stark, physical reminder that cutting corners has consequences. In our world of startups and tech, we talk about moving fast and breaking things. But this tank was the ultimate, literal manifestation of that reckless philosophy. They moved fast, they built cheap, and they broke a community. It's a lesson in responsibility. Every calculation we skip, every assumption we don't test, every warning sign we ignore, they might not result in a flood of molasses, but they create their own kind of ripple effects. For me, coming from Bangladesh, a land of rivers and floods, I understand the power of water, the respect it demands. This story is about a different kind of flood, one contained by human arrogance until it couldn't be contained any longer. So the next time you see molasses or sweeten your tea with it, remember this strange and sobering tale. Remember that in the heart of Boston, a modern city, a simple substance taught a brutal lesson about physics, greed, and accountability. It's a story that reminds us that progress without care isn't progress at all. It's just a disaster waiting for the temperature to rise. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. I'm Abnul J. Farabi. If you enjoyed this episode of the Curiosity Compendium, please share it with someone who loves a good story. It helps more curious minds find us. This show is produced by Light Knot Studios. You can find more of our work and support independent educational storytelling by visiting us at lightknotstudios.com. Until next time, stay curious.